Hello everyone, welcome to Respectful Dave. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying your weekend. Time to do some chess. You guys know the drill. I'll leave you some couple of minutes for you guys to figure out the best move for black. It's black to play and win. I'll make sure everything is running correctly. For black, it's black to play and best move for black. It's black to play and is running correctly. Okay. So, if you guys still haven't figured this out, feel free to pause the video. Not only feel free, but actually I encourage you to try harder before I ultimately show the answer, or what I think is the answer, because this one is pretty tough so far. So yeah, let's move on to the solution into this. Clearly we see some action going against the white king. Anywhere we move this rook, it's going to be check. And very often in these scenarios, you're trying to somehow win material, but unfortunately the queen is out of the range of the rook. It would take more than one move for that rook to take that queen, so we can't fully win in that way. We have to find something else. And let's also keep an eye on our own king, which is not the safest. If anything, it's pretty unsafe to, like rook e1, queen c5 are threats. If we allow white to do that, then we're in big trouble. Now, funnily enough, maybe rook e1 is not a threat because of rook e2 check, but queen c5, queen takes c5 is definitely a threat. However, it is black to play, and one of the first moves that you should calculate is rook takes f2. This is the first move that I calculated, but unfortunately it does not work, because after king b1, I tried, because I've seen this, I've recognized this pattern, I've tried exploiting the back rank, but there's no way. For example, queen f5, we're blundering the queen. David, why are you even trying queen f5 in the first place? Well, rook takes f2, king b1, let's imagine this pawn does not exist. Queen f5 would be completely winning in that scenario, because what does white play? King c1, queen c2 mate. I think we can all visualize that. And if king a1, rook f1. So the point of queen f5 was to force king a1, sorry, and only then rook f1 mate. Well, rook takes f1, queen takes f1 mate. If you go rook takes f2, king b1, in that hypothetical scenario where this pawn does not exist, if you go rook f1 right away, takes, king c2, the king escapes. So that's what queen f5 would be doing, but unfortunately queen f5 is not possible because of the pawn. However, I have good news for you guys, and that is that you can still make it so the rook and the queen work together and force a back rank mate, and that is rook e2. So once again, very simple calculation. Rook e2, white has to go to b1, king d1 runs into queen d2, immediate checkmate. And now no longer, obviously queen f5 doesn't make sense. Now we team up with the rook in the same rank through e4. And now once again, king c1 runs into queen c2, so king a1, and only then we, well, I mean, I say only then, but obviously rook e1 right away. Rook takes e1, we're just blundering the rook, so this is the only way. Now, if everything's working fine, although for some reason YouTube is being special. There we go. So it seems everything is working fine. Why did I do that? There we go. And now we're playing the Daily Rapid Arena. David, you're 1,000 years late. You were supposed to start streaming 1 hour ago. You're 1 hour late. What are you doing? Excellent question, my friendo. The answer to that is I wanted to play the Rapid Arena, and if you guys were around yesterday, I did say that. I did announce it towards the end, although I was a little bit unsure. But we're gonna play in the Rapid Arena, which is every 2 hours. If I had started the stream 1 hour ago, we wouldn't have made it. It would have been too late for the previous arena and too early for the one we're playing right now. In short words, everything is fine. So let's see what we find ourselves with. And as always, I think, you know, I was gonna say I was gonna play for only an hour, but let's see if we're doing very well on the arena, we might as well stay as long as the game quality does not deteriorate. Best of luck, Savino Gorl. We're gonna Berserk just to get to the top of the board. Ladder board, I should say. Quicker. So they go for e4. We're gonna go knight f6, hitting the pawn. Knight c3 is the most natural way of playing, and we're gonna play e5, inviting white to go into this endgame. But also knight f3 is very serious. White goes d5. A very interesting move, kind of seizing space right away. But the bad thing about this move is that usually you would like to play c4 if you're going to go for d5. So having a knight on c3 is not ideal necessarily. I'm going to go for a King's Indian setup. And essentially start moving on into potentially knight h5, f5 ideas. So I'm going to start with knight h5. Take a look at how I can't find good squares for these pieces yet. So my queenside development is kind of still stuck. That's why I go knight h5, f5 as a result of not having anything better to do. There are many certain scenarios where we go knight f4 and we would be happy for white to take on f4 just for the sake of activating this dark square bishop. And even if we do end up losing that pawn on f4, it's worth it because our bishop on g7 activates itself so efficiently. I'm going to go ahead and play f5. I'm not scared of any knight g5 or bishop g5 stuff. My opponent does end up playing knight g5. Very interesting. We can continue with f4. Let's see, do I fear anything? I don't think so. Knight e6. So let's just calculate this for a second. What is going on? F takes g3. Sacrificing the queen does not seem to work. Because check, there's, I don't know, king d2, for example. But even king f1, knight g3, king g2 is not working very well for black. But what I don't understand is, what if I take and then take here? What am I missing? Knight d5 does end up threatening this, but I think I'm quicker. Bishop c4 does also threat e7, but I think I have enough counterplay to mitigate all of these counterplay in the center. I have counterplay against the white king. For example, knight d5, I take. But also worst case scenario, knight d5, I can take and play knight c6, for example. Stopping e7, developing a knight. Things are looking good. So my opponent ends up taking on g3, queen g5 is losing the queen. So as much as we would like to include the queen, it's unfortunately not working out very well. So we're going to take on g3. And not only we're creating a threat, but also, well, the threat of taking the rook, but we're also introducing queen h4 into the equation. And that has its own perks. However, as soon as I said that, I realized there's queen g4 as a response of that, forcing the queen trade as my knight on g3 would be under fire. And after the sequence of moves, forced sequence of moves, I should say, this knight ends up being pretty trapped. So this is something I overlooked. How do we approach this? But I can go back. I'm gonna go back. Actually, there's some very interesting moves here. Because if I move this knight away, like let's say the most ridiculous move, takes and then queen h4 is check. So there is the idea of moving this knight away and then introducing queen h4 with check. Queen h4 right away, the only reason is queen g4. So moving the knight out of the diagonal Seems to be pretty dangerous. They go queen g4, and we have to speed up a little bit because 99 times out of 100, we end up running out of time here. Now, bishop g5, we have to be careful. We can't play bishop f6 because there's this beautiful move, queen takes h5. We can maybe talk about that in the post-mortem. So we would have to play something like queen e8 potentially. But okay, this... actually, this is very interesting. Knight d4, there's e7. Queen e c8, knight f6. I do have knight f6 here. Then there's e7. Then I take, simply. So yeah, I'm happy with knight f6. I'm getting rid of this super annoying knight. Hey, thanks for following. Hello, Roger. Not sure why the... Someone followed on Twitch and it didn't notify me. Queen g5 I'm not too worried about because of knight takes d5, queen takes d8. Rook a takes d8, e takes d5, and knight e7 maybe. And I am up a pawn at the end of all of these lines, let's not forget. And after knight e7, d5 is hanging. You do have to be careful because white would have the bishop pair, and taking on d5 does line up some potential tactics along the diagonal. But okay, queen g3 ends up being played by my opponent. Let's see. I'm gonna take here. And then go knight d4 potentially, introducing the threat of knight f3. Also keeping in mind that something like bishop g5 could potentially be met with a queen sacrifice momentarily, at least. Followed by knight f3, and then I take, and then should be at least better practically in the resulting opposite color bishop endgame. And by the way, I mean, that reminded me of the endgame that Anish Giri survived today against Sindarov. What amazing. I should have actually briefly talked about that before we started playing. Okay, bishop g5 does end up happening. I think I will go for this. Knight f3, what is the difference? Queen takes, rook takes, bishop takes, rook d... Yeah, maybe there's an advantage of going knight f3 first. I'm gonna go knight f3. Because the rook ends up active. And I'm attacking h3. At the end of the sequence. So tak tak, as they say. There's also a hidden advantage, I think. Or maybe I'm overthinking here. But I was thinking about things with e4. Good lord, king e2. That is pretty exciting stuff. Okay, I guess I can go back into this, but is there nothing better? Can't I take this? Very ambitious move, this one, but I think my opponent called this very well. Called this a bluff. They're right. Let's not put our king into tons of pressure and simply exchange pieces. I'm gonna play rook f4, trying to bring everyone into the game. Sorry. Also, there's a sneaky tactic, and that is e4, I think. Is it work? I think it is working. So the idea is that I'm trying to kind of entice my opponent to play king e3, because after rook h4, it does look like I'm losing a pawn, and we're gonna get that line. But in reality, my opponent is losing the exchange. So here we go, bishop h6. This is winning the exchange. And I'm planning to... I mean, I'm not even threatening to take it right away as long as it's a pin. As they say, the threat is stronger than the execution. So the idea here would be to adjust my microphone so I'm not shouting at you guys. And that one unfortunately loses more than a game. There we go. Thank you for the game. This is Vino Gorl. My opponent forgot about that bishop. I'm not sure if I would have taken or taking on g5 first. I think taking on g5 first, obviously, because only then I could take back. But many roads lead to Rome. So let's change this. There we go. So let's see what the engine thinks about our play. So d5 is a rare guest in this opening. It's in a whopping 3, 6, 7, 8. The 8th most popular move, but it's a very decent move. It keeps white's slight plus in the opening. And I went g6. I forgot that I actually played c6. After which bishop c4 is a move. It is something that people do, but there's b5 and b4 stuff. Undermining the center. But okay, g6 is very playable as well, so a little bit of variety doesn't hurt. But I should have played c6 according to the engine. Knight h5 is interesting, but the engine doesn't love this. It gives white a better position, an advantage. Not a slight advantage. Okay. The more the engine thinks, probably the more a minimal advantage that's going to become. But c6 is completely equal according to the engine. Now g3 is not the way. According to the engine, bishop g5 was the right way. And I guess queen e8 already some knight b5, knight b5, knight takes c7 is going to be annoying in the future. But the engine goes g4, and I'm actually pretty impressed about this. Knight f4 takes what? I thought this is what white wanted to avoid. Look at this bishop. Yeah, I'm happy with this. I don't believe the engine. And actually, the more the engine thinks, the more it realizes. Look at this. G4, this, queen d2. And then we actually went through some of the best moves. And somehow white's advantage decreased rather than increased. So, yeah, this is not a problem. So, yeah, I don't know what the engine is thinking. The engine doesn't understand these positions very well in low depth. Now, I go f5, and the engine does not like that. Pretty explicitly. Because of takes, knight h4. Yeah, this is the type of thing I was watching out for, and then I completely blundered. What if queen e8 though? It seems to be holding everything. Let me just go little by little. Sorry, I'm running around in this sense. So f5 is a very double-edged move. And one of the common ways for white to react in these situations is to take and go knight h4. Why? Because that's putting f5 under serious pressure, while creating a very simple tactical threat of queen takes h5. The knight on h5 becomes undefended now that there's no longer a pawn on g6. But I'm wondering, what if queen e8? Because this is defended twice, so enough times to not lose it. And yeah, I mean, if it was black to play again, I'm going to press X on my keyboard. It says that black would be absolutely fine with a move like queen f7. Which once again, I mean, it's kind of a very accurate move that black has to play. It's not as if black could play several moves and all of them are giving them a comfortable game. It does seem like black has to be a little bit more accurate than white. But yeah, to make matters worse for black, it seems like the engine, it seems like white, well, the engine is giving white a big advantage after this sequence of moves, and then g4. That's pretty interesting. I mean, what if I simply go back? Gh5. Let's flip this. Okay, I believe it. Yeah. But it's a little bit complicated. I mean, humanly speaking, that's the way you kind of make yourself feel better in chess. Humanly speaking, it's a little bit difficult, you know. F7, and then what did we lose? One pawn. Okay, and white has to play a little bit accurate. Yeah, this is the typical King's Indian line where the engine gives white a clear, much better advantage, but then humanly it's a little bit not as easy. Let's take a look at what happened in the game. So my opponent went knight g5. This is wrong. Then I continued f4. After which knight e6 was played, but then takes is already slightly better for black. My opponent did end up playing well. We should have kept the tension here. It turned out that after this, rook g1, white had some dangerous counterplay. We should have played queen f6 according to this. Queen knight h5 is a mistake, and we're gonna go through that. More about that later, very soon. What am I doing here? Oh yeah, knight c6 was the way. After which, let's say, okay, knight d5 is not as natural as bishop e3. Let's say bishop e3, and only then we can take. Why? Why? Because now queen h4 does work, but I was trying to make that work. I didn't see it. Let's turn off the engine here. Black to play and win. There must be something here. Or black to play and do something clever. Black to play and do something clever. Ah, we take, and then we go rook f3. Let's see if the engine agrees with this. Completely no, actually. Not a 5 check. Taking and playing rook f3 falls into bishop f2, and then this guy is lost. Well, epic fail, but then not a 5 check is the way. Yeah. And if we had played knight h3, sorry. This idea of knight f5 I didn't even consider here. But it's completely lost after e7. Wow. Completely lost. Rated. Nothing matte. Interesting. So why is e7 completely winning? What if I simply go rook e8? Oh, I see. Wow, that's tough to see. So this knight is trapped. So the knight is trapped on g3, but then the knight is trapped also on h4. That's insane. I mean, if I take king g3, look at that. Good lord. Yeah. Okay, well, what a nice line. Can't claim that we saw all of that, but yeah, we ended up going knight h5, which is losing for their own reasons. So just to summarize all of that, whole bunch of variations. Knight c6 was the way. Knight g3 is actually allowing white to gain a very big advantage. But not with queen g4. Bishop g5 was the right way. And after bishop g5, I think we probably mentioned this. I know that bishop f6 is not working because of queen takes h5. This is something I wanted to show. This is just straight up mate. It's not even that we're losing material. It's just mate thanks to this pawn on e6. King f7 is impossible. King h8, all of this. We can't even block. Game over. So queen h5 is a super move. We have to watch out for those tricks. That's why queen e8 is one of the main lines. But then once again, clear best move here is e7. Now let's say, okay, I understand rook f7 is falling into bishop c4, losing the exchange. Yeah, we're losing the exchange, but I mean, what if rook f4? And knight d5. Yeah, obviously this is not much to worry about. I think black has some compensation here. But knight d5 is the real problem. So if White had found those ideas with e7, they're kind of very difficult. It's not kind of a pattern you would recognize. It's not a familiar interface in chess, in the world of chess tactics. But that's why you have to do tactics. I mean, move by move, this is just a very concrete idea. Going e7, the rook doesn't have anywhere to go. You're losing the exchange, you're losing the game. And also, okay, bishop g5, bishop f6, things like queen takes h5 are important. But queen g4 was played, and now my opponent forgave me. We went knight c6, knight f6 is correct. We do have to play a little bit accurately to not get completely destroyed. And after queen g3, things went our way. e7 was, according to the engine, the best way. And taking on e7 is the only move. I thought queen e6 was going to be a problem all of a sudden, but then there's rook f7, only move to defend this guy. And then we're fine. It's a little bit, it's almost working for white, but then we're in time for everything. And according to the engine, this is still better for white, which is impressive, because we're up a pawn. We're up 2 pawns, sorry. But it's white's better. I mean, rook f8. Ah, okay, there's stuff. Sorry, rook f1, yeah. Yeah, very tactical, once again. Very tactical. So after e7 takes, we have to take with the bishop. After which bishop h6, and white is maintaining equality. But queen g3 now, we're pretty happy, and then here, knight f3 is okay, but much better was bishop f6. What if simply castles? e4, or takes. and rook f4. So having the knight rather than the dark square bishop is a much better endgame. Because what we did, 28 was here strong. What we did was also pretty good, but more chances for white to equalize. Now, obviously, if your opponent only has 2 moves to equalize, then definitely there's some things that we're doing correctly here, practically speaking. And my opponent went wrong with king e3. If they had played bishop c4 or bishop b5, it would have been a balanced position. Hello, easy. I'm playing the daily Rapid Arena, so you could join the Rapid Arena, and the odds of us playing would increase. Sorry, I'm not playing against viewers. That's the short answer. Okay, 101th place. We actually decreased. We started in like 70th place. We won a game and now we're worse. Life is tough sometimes. Yesterday I asked in the Discord how to make it so the usual gradient of leeches, to how to disable this, and some absolute legend replied with a code, which if anyone is interested, I can share with, because I do think that gradient in the top bar is annoying. Let's see if our pawn plays the Najdorf or Najdorvian Sicilians. They do not. They play e6. That's fine. We got a Najdorf yesterday, so that's better than nothing. We're gonna play the delayed Alapin. Black plays knight c6. I'm gonna play d4. That's the point of playing c3. My opponent takes. I'm gonna take back, and my opponent goes d5. So there's something very funny going on here. If I play e5, we transpose directly into the French, the advanced French. And if your opponent with the black pieces doesn't usually play the French, then that's a big achievement. Now, I'm not going to play the French today. I'm going to take kind of a reminiscent of the exchange French or the exchange Caro. All of these, you get to understand all of these patterns whenever you see something like e takes d5. It's kind of similar to the Queen's Gambit, where white goes c takes d5, e takes d5, knight c3, and then clarifies the tension in the center right away. I'm gonna play bishop b5, Ruy Lopez style. Obviously, this is a much different version of the Ruy Lopez, but bishop b5 is still a very logical move. Black goes bishop g4. I don't think black can afford to do the same that white is doing, especially because white is getting rook e1 quicker, and then I don't know, it feels wrong. It feels wrong. How do we approach this though? I mean, we can go h3, bishop h5, and very often we can sacrifice the safety of our king for the sake of getting knight e5. And it happens a lot in the Jabava London, actually. Maybe we can show some lines in the postmortem. So I suspect my opponent already has to accept or swallow their pride, I should say, accept their mistake and revert it, kind of, which is the lesser evil, to not make things worse. But it's a difficult move to make. Bishop e6 or bishop d7. So essentially saying, look, I move over here, I gave you the useful move h3, and then I'm gonna go back to where I could have played right away. But as I said, it's the lesser evil. However, bishop 6 f3, I don't think this poses that much trouble. It's giving me the famous bishop pair. So knight f6. I'm gonna play knight c3, cause a short side. I don't know, bishop e3, keeping an eye on d4, and then rook a d1, and I should be slightly better. So I'm gonna play knight c3. Black castles. Oh, sorry, I forgot about changing this. I'm gonna play bishop e3. I don't think there's a better better way of defending that pawn other than bishop a3. There's rook d1. Yeah, bishop a3 is natural. I'm gonna try to bring this rook to d1, and then rook fe1, and then bishop d3, and then bishop b1, and then bishop c1. Put my bishops in these two diagonals from far away. And things should go my way. At least I would hope so. Black goes knight b4. This is creating a threat of knight c2, where I guess black wants to get rid of one of my bishops. So I'm going to play rook a c1. I don't want to allow that. Or should I allow it? I mean, I can also go rook a d1, knight c2, bishop c1. Actually, I choose that one. Do I choose that one? Yeah, I choose that one, rook a d1. So now I'm threatening a3 without having to worry about knight c2 gaining a tempo on my rook. And after a3, knight c2, bishop c1, this is what I wanted. You may be asking, well, David, your bishop is inactive on c1. Are you not unhappy about that? Like, this bishop on c1 is very passive. It's in the first rank. But bishops are happy from far away. C, I would say, actually. Far away, far away. Very bad joke. Hopefully you guys can forgive me. Let's continue with the chess, which is what I'm actually decent at. So we're actually getting what I wanted just with the move a3, but okay, bishop e1, we've kind of completed our plan of finishing development. Now what do we do? This is a typical existential question you ask yourself once all your pieces are in decent squares. What do we do now? We can go rook e2, rook fe1, but I choose to go bishop f4, bishop e5. Knight c4 is something that concerns me momentarily. I suppose knight c4 I could go bishop c1. I didn't go bishop c1 right away because there was knight b3. But maybe I could have done a reverse idea of what I did actually. Bishop c1, anticipating knight c4, and if knight b3 only, then bishop f4. So lots of ideas, very rich position. I will choose to go rook e2 actually. Keeping an eye on this. Obviously knight takes b2, rook takes b2, rook takes c3 is under control. And if my opponent allows me, I will go ahead and play rook de1 now that d4 is nothing to be concerned about. Bishop e5 is also coming into my mind. David, isn't bishop e5 allowing black to get rid of one of your bishops? And as a result, you won't have the advantage of the bishop pair. Yes, but it is doing that in my terms. So I do lose the dark square bishop, but then I get a very strong pawn on e5, which creates threats, and I think I'm by force simply winning the d5 pawn. So it's dropping material in short words. So my opponent's thinking probably bishop d6 is one of the first moves that they would consider. But after rook takes c8, queen takes c8, bishop d6, knight d5, we are winning material. So they go a6. Following the very famous chess principle, whenever you're confused, just move a pawn. Now, should I go... Maybe I went wrong by playing rook de1. I should have played bishop e5 first. Okay, I think it's fine. It's all good. My opponent takes... Yeah, this is the reason why I was actually doubting myself. But I think I can still take, and there's enough pressure against d5. So I'm still winning the d5 pawn. Wow, my opponent goes for something very interesting. Something very interesting here. Knight takes d5, knight takes c4. I mean, okay. Many moves, I think, are completely winning. But in the resulting opposite color bishop middle game, my bishop seems to be just a complete monster. I mean, I go e6, and then if I'm weakening the structure in such a way, it's just a matter of time before black completely collapses. Bishop takes f5, I guess, is the threat here. I mean, I do have to keep an eye on the time, as we famously struggle with. But yeah. Okay, let's go queen g3. Hitting this guy. And this is failing to bishop f5. Tactics. Rook f5, queen g6. gf, illegal. Bishop takes g6 is a threat, so they do that. We come back. Now there's been a massive improvement in the position as long as I put a queen on e4, on g6, or somehow try to get it or coordinate it with the bishop, then good things will happen. I'll go queen d3, queen h7, queen h8 is the threat here. I'm actually quite happy that black went queen c7. I was actually struggling to put a rook on the d file. But now things are easier for me. How does black stop queen h7? That's an excellent question. Bishop f8 allows e7. And king f8 just kind of prolongs, delays the problem, but doesn't solve it. Hello, ajedrecista. Yeah, David is I mean, you can read it, David, so it defeats the whole purpose. King d8, we put a rook here, and this is also completely hopeless. Queen g8, queen 6 f8 is made. There's no pre-move in case something weird happens. We do have 30 seconds, we don't have to pre-move. Thank you for the game. Let's take a look at that reasonably quick. I am from Mexico originally. Then I moved to the UK. And I was happy ever after. I'm joking. Now, as you can see here, sorry about that. D5, E5 is the main line, and it's the engine. Oh, good lord. I keep doing this. It's what the engine recommends, and it's what people play the most. So, yeah, very logical. But E takes D5 is within the best moves, and it's good enough for a playable game. It turns out Bishop B5 is wrong by me. I should have played Knight C3. Let's say our pawn goes Bishop D4. What is the difference? We go H3, takes. We need 3 check, Knight E6, and Bishop B5. Yeah. I see. So Queen E7 is forced, but then Bishop B5 regardless. And if this Knight takes B5, okay, very complicated. Yeah, I don't regret going for Bishop B5. I think this is very logical. They go Bishop G4. I think Bishop D6 would have been better. After which I would have castled. And black has to play an unnatural move here, because if Knight F6, Rook E1 check, and it's a little bit annoying. So Knight G E7 they have to play. Then we go H3, and this is very typical of the exchange French. Just that normally in the exchange French, there's still pawns on C2 and C7, but that doesn't seem to affect the position that much. Like Knight C3, and then black goes H6, and black is absolutely fine. Black has no problems at all. So Bishop G4 was played, and then Bishop D6 would have been very strong here. Just more active, I guess, and keeping this E7 square for the knight, rather than blocking it with the bishop and compromising to Knight F6. But I understand Bishop E7. It's trying to block the E file. It's just not necessary. You can block it with the knight. And after H3, Bishop H5. I thought this was bad. Oh, what am I doing? Sorry, this is with Bishop D6. This did not happen in the game. So Bishop E7 happened in the game. And yeah, Bishop H5, G4, followed by Knight E5 would have been strong, according to the engine. So this is what we would have done. And as a result of that, black did end up making the right decision. I thought Bishop E6 was the way. It's also one of the ways. But Bishop 6F3 is the most resistant, according to the engine. And yeah, we got this position. It's a very clear, very clean slight plus for white. Plus 0.5. So we can call this kind of a modest, humble advantage for white, thanks to the bishop pair. And the remaining part of the game was purely strategy. I mean, putting pieces in good squares, finishing development. And it seemed like slowly our kind of advantage built up. I'm not sure where exactly black could have... There we go, here. This is a critical moment. Rook E8, Bishop B4, H6, but Knight B4 is the beginning of the end. No, I mean, the beginning of a bad plan. And yeah, I was completely right. Take a look at this. I realized it as soon as I went Bishop F4, and I realized, oh. So very often when there's a knight on A5, and it's still flexible, right? It's still willing to either go to B3 or C4. So I saw Bishop C1, Knight B3, and I got annoyed. And I moved on too quickly. I didn't calculate one move further. And the reason why I say this is because there was Bishop F4 here. So I think this version, rather than Bishop F4, Knight C4, and then Bishop C1, It's a top common. This is still better for white, but yeah, I think it was better to do it the other way around. And just to kind of finish my thoughts here, it's a typical pattern when you're trying to find good squares for your bishops, and they're like you're trying to find them from far away. Yeah, trying to predict where this knight comes and moving around a lot with the same bishop is nothing new. But okay, bishop f4 we played, and then bishop c1 would have been strong here, but I went rook e2 because it looked too weird. Kind of, okay, rook e2 is very playable as well. And black had to play bishop d6, which we were about to win a pawn with, but this goes off to show how strong the engines are in general. So whenever you're getting a worse position, the engine never stays still. Like, the engine always finds counterplay. So queen e2, and then this is very annoying already. You have to play very accurately as well. Look at this, queen b3. Backwards queen move. A very nice queen on d5 attacking a knight. Queen b3. So you have to play accurately. Yeah, if my opponent's listening to me, I guess active defense. But after this, it's just kind of allowing white pieces to improve further. And after this, everything's collapsing. Knight takes d5 would have been stronger. And after this, bishop takes e4, which I did think about, but didn't completely. Oh, I see. And if this bishop d5, I know bishop f5 regardless. Wow. But okay, knight takes e4 is also winning. And then e6, and then queen e3 here would have been better, but okay, all of these are winning, and then this is a blunder, and we won. Okay, well, thank you for the game. Let's return if we can. There we go. So how far are we? We're super far. Yeah, well, 21 points. Okay, that's doable. The Lichess chat on the Rapid Arenas, as usual, pretty suspicious. Good thing that my camera is occupying some of it. There we go. Thank you, Lichess. Let's change the layout. Let's Berserk. And let's blitz d6. 1 d6, a flexible move. We still haven't chosen which line to play. Do you like classic French defense? I think it's very serious, yeah. I've never played it though. Now there's something interesting here, and I always like comparing this endgame with those of e4. So e4, e5 is absolutely fine for black, but slightly better for white. However, after c4, it's just literally nothing for white. This is very bad for white. It's still a playable line, I suppose, but it's very annoying for white, because it's, you have more of c4 is more of a weakness. You would rather have that pawn on, I don't know, c3. c4 is a weakness. It's weakening b4 and d4. So a3 is a very weird move. I'm gonna play bishop e6, attacking this dude over there. I'm expecting e3 or e4. And now d4 is very weak. So I'm going to try to exploit every single square. I'm going to play a5. I'm going to reserve this pawn on c7, sorry, to play c6. Actually, I could go for that right away. Should I do it right away? Let's think here. No need to rush. I know we do have to rush because we're berserked. But I think c6 is a very decent move. The idea is king c7, not only keeping an eye on those two squares, which the knight has already access to, but also preparing king c7. And you're saying, well, David, b6 becomes a little bit weak. Watch out. Don't worry. I have everything under control now. I mean, knight a4, I would have play knight d7, right? It's a little bit delicate. Maybe not ideal, but it's fine. h3, very serious move, because very often I have the idea of knight h6 with the idea of knight g4, but my opponent very professionally avoids all of that. I'm gonna have to play knight d7. The idea being bishop c5, in order to trade those dark square bishops. If white castles, I wouldn't have the chance of playing bishop c5 because there's this tactic, rook takes d7, but my opponent plays bishop e2, which seems to only give me full control over the c5 square. I'm going to go ahead and occupy the bishop c5. I'm pretty happy about this. It goes without saying, because it's kind of the beginning of the exploitation of weak squares. d4, b3, like white's aspirations of going b4 are completely dead. Now that there's this very strong lock, aka a pawn on a4, completely locking that pawn structure in the queen side closed. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is already positionally lost, because white has way too many weaknesses. There's weaknesses over there, then b3 stuff, and then c4 is also a weakness. My bishop is attacking a weakness, my opponent's bishop is defending the weakness. So how sad is that? Now, of course, as I've made the mistake of doing before, time management, we have to keep an eye on the time, even though we're completely winning, I suppose. We have to keep a stoic mind. The amount of times we've lost winning positions are way too many. And I quote what I thought was a Victor Korchnoi quote, but I found out later on that it was actually Donner. And let me just find the full name, just to get the record straight once and for all. Donner chess, there we go. Jan Geen Donner. Let's see if we can pull out an image of him. I suppose I can show the stream here. That's Donner. He was a personality. As chess is full of them. So Jan Geen Donner said very famously, "Give me a slightly worse position, I'll defend it. Give me a drawn position, I'll hold." Yeah, like something like slightly worse position, I'll hold it. Give me a drawn position, I'll try to win it. And I think he gives a third example, and then he goes, "But a winning position, those I can't bear." Something along those lines. Okay, enough of all of that. Rook fd1 is played by my opponent. Now you guys are actually seeing how I'm losing on time. Now this is very clever. Knight e7. Okay, yeah, this is fine as well. I'm gonna play knight h6 because I want my knight on f7, ultimately on d6. You know what? Okay, knight e7 is more flexible because I can also go. I can go to either d6 or b6, whatever is convenient for me. So I think ultimately d6 is what I want, but I don't know. Maybe black, but maybe white plays something that makes me go b6. Knight. Now bishop g4 is potentially a threat, so I'm gonna go h5. I'm not gonna allow my opponent to get anything active looking. Why would I? My advantage is in the long term, and I have all the time in the world to keep things under control. Now, talking about that, it seems like I allowed a little bit of counterplay. But a3 is very weak all of a sudden, so is this actually working? I don't think so. I think I can take. And let's think here. Knight d6. Knight b6, but then rook b1. So I have to be careful. Knight d6 maybe makes more sense. And the idea here is that even though white could put more pressure, I think I can simply defend here. I can also simply go rook a5, by the way. Rook b1. This is not a threat because my knight is defending. The real threat here is c5, kind of creating some threats here. So rook a5. So this is an excellent example of what Sam Shankland used to say, although there's a debate whether it was actually Sam Shankland or Jacob Agard. But the principle goes as follows, which is Whenever your opponent threatens something, is it really a threat? Can't you just continue with life? And with rook b1, the threat is nothing along these... Like, the real threat is c5, that's my point. Either way, moving on, I'm gonna lose on time like this. I'm gonna double in the a file to keep this knight locked to c3. Potentially, I'm gonna follow up with rook c5, after which I think the pressure on c4 against the c4 pawn becomes unbearable. Which is amazing. Amazing news. So I'm gonna go rook c5, bishop takes c4, followed by... I don't think there's anything white can do. So what remains is conversion, and that's... Once again, I mean, you could argue the whole part of the game since move... I don't know. When my opponent plays bishop e2. The whole game has been conversion since then, but I would be surprised if it was impossible for white to put any resistance in between. Now this position I do think is completely collapsing, just because c4 is too weak, and I'm not seeing any tactics. Maybe white should try something like knight. Okay, well, I'm gonna take on c4, give me that guy. Not only that, but it forces the exchange of lots of pieces. So the bishops first and then the rooks, because a4 is weak. I think actually white can't do much about that one, because rook takes c4, knight takes c4. If rook a1, there's b5. That one is interesting. Yeah, that's a better way of doing it. I'm gonna go rook a5 for the sake of activating over here. I don't want to push this pawn because that would weaken the d5 square. I'm gonna keep my structure as it is over here. And this is a very interesting question. I'm gonna exchange, but I am a little bit concerned because, as the famous saying goes, all rook endgames are drawn. And yeah, I'm gonna go rook c5. With this, I can activate my rook and come back. I don't necessarily want to exchange pawns. So check. King c7. I'm gonna now put my rook. My rook is now activated. This is what I achieved through the small maneuver of king d6, rook c5, rook b4, and rook c2. So for example, after rook a2, like if it was black to play again, rook a2 followed by c5, right? c5, rook c4, b6, or king b6, or king c6. They can go g4, but I'm gonna keep my structure as it is. g5, I take. And I'm completely fine. I think I may be a little bit ambitious with this move, king b7. My idea is king a5, but then... Okay, the other idea is rook b2 for the sake of keeping the king slightly closer to the action. Because I can also win this pawn through different means. So rook b4, obviously taking the rook is resulting in a completely lost endgame. I don't think even white is in time to stop the pawn. I don't think white is even in the famous square. And one of the... Look at this. I mean, obviously I didn't calculate this far, but this is one of the advantages of having the king on a6 as opposed to a5. Now I play king b7 and there's no chance for that white rook to activate itself. If it could somehow target this h5 pawn, then maybe things wouldn't be that simple. I'm gonna go c3. I could have gone c3 right away. I'm not sure why I did this. This was pretty silly on my part. But now I just play rook d2 and then b5, b4, and life is tough. Or king c5, king d4. Potentially even better because I have 4 king f3s. Something to watch out for. David, you have less than 10 seconds. Will you make it? Actually, I'm not sure. We'll see, I guess. I have to watch out for stalemate tricks. Rook a1, b5. And a rook a1, rook d1. Check. I promote, even if they skewer me. Feel free to do so. And yeah, it's a very simple one to pre-move this one because white has no moves. I just promote. And there's no stalemate. Thank you for the game, Mapsivo. Let's take a look at that. Hi David, too late. Yeah, I was late. New subscriber, thank you very much. Baseball. As I said, look at this. This is not even anything for white. It's, if anything, slightly better. A tiny edge for black, but okay. It's a balanced position. The way to explain this in a nutshell is, yeah, c4 is a very useful move if you keep things close, but not if you trade on e5. If you trade on e5, this somewhat extenuates the weakness on d4. But yeah, a3 is very, very weird. Normally white goes knight c3, and then we get a similar lines to what happened in the game, but white doesn't want to compromise to go a3 yet, because very often what happened in the game actually ends up happening, which is a5, a4, and then you're bumping your head against the wall, swearing at yourself, wondering why you went a3 too quickly. Now, a3 did end up happening, and we went a5. This is the correct way of playing, and I think it was just a very clean way. Now, c6 is a mistake by me. I should have played bishop c5, yeah. So I should have asked myself, well, what can white play that would prevent me from playing bishop c5? I mean, it looks like a very targeted question, very conveniently phrased. But it is true, like c6 I can play after playing bishop c5, but I can't play bishop c5 after playing c6. So yeah, bishop c5, I was a little bit scared of knight a4. Simply here I can play knight a6. And all of these weaknesses get to compensate more than enough, give black an advantage for the sake of the dark square bishop. So c6, I go king c7, black still has a slight advantage, and they go h3, and this is the beginning of some weird plan here. Knight a4, knight d7, and castles queenside was the right way. After which it's not so easy for black to get some control over this the c5 square, but the dark squares in general. So I would have to go something like rook b8 with the idea of what's the idea? b6, and then in that way solve the whole situation in the queen side. But obviously if black can prevent going for having to spend tempos for rook b8 and b6, they would do so. So that's why bishop c5 here was strong, because then all of that nonsense with b6 is out of the question. And yeah, this is why bishop b2 is also like not strong at all. Like castles queenside would have also failed. So knight a4, there was still a chance. But after this, I did say here that I wouldn't be surprised if black was completely positionally winning. And I'm wrong. It's not winning, but it's very close to. It's almost past the magic winning number 1.5. So practically, you know, and even after this, like you have to play g3, knight d2, yeah. Now we are past that number, and after a4, yeah, it's just a very sad position. The engine already gives knight d5 stuff. Ah, wait a second, this is not as easy as I thought. We can't take with a pawn, because after takes, both d6 and obviously d takes c6 are threats. Not to mention rook ac1 stuff. The engine still finds a way of getting a slight advantage for black, though. And yeah, seems to be pretty clean here. Knight g6 was preferred rather than knight c8, because that allows b4, but then yeah, there was no problem in allowing b4, so yeah. This was very clean. I say arrogantly, rook c5 here would have been strong already, picking up c4. But we ended up doing that either way. Rook c1, bishop takes c4, knight b1 was the best resistance. But after b5, it's completely lost. Let's say, did we mess up at any given point in the endgame? Oh, we found the right plan, I think. King b7, king a6. The engine likes king a5, not rook b2. Ah, because of rook c1. And then this is not making progress, I guess. Okay, I think it's just two different ways of converting this. Okay, well. Let's keep moving. Oh, look, this guy's called David as well. We're still not getting 2000 rated guys. So let's continue berserking, but let's not take it for granted. Okay, e6. It's been a while since we played La Bourdannais French. So black goes d5, we go e5. And the whole point of the La Bourdannais is to give you a rough time trying to pronounce its name. I'm joking. La Bourdannais. I think it's La Bourdannais. Now, the whole point is to prolong the move of this pawn on d2 in order to go for knight e3, knight c2. I think that's the simplistic way of explaining this. I'm going to go c3. Once again, I'm not going d4. If I go d4, then c takes d4 becomes a thing, becomes a possibility, which means that after knight a3, black could potentially get rid of that knight. I'm quite sure, once again, guys, don't get angry. I mean, it's an impossible task to explain an opening in a very short time frame. So that's a reductionist explanation, but there's nothing better than that. We can maybe talk about it a little bit more in the post-mortem. Now, black goes knight f5. Usually the way black punishes these openings is with d4 stuff. Knight f5 here is a mistake. Like, if black wants to go knight f5, they have to play h5 first. Because if not, then g4 is coming with a tempo, and then putting the knight on h6 is not fixing anything. Now, c takes d4, this is always a very tough question to answer with the white pieces. Do you take with a piece? Or do you take with a pawn? Both of them are absolutely fine, but I'm going to choose to take the pawn for the sake of making black's life more difficult. Why? Because if I take with the knight, then black gets to get rid of this knight, exchange pieces. Remember, whoever has less space in a given position benefits from exchanging pieces, minor pieces. And you can directly see why this is beneficial, because after taking, this knight has a clear home, a clear good square, and that's just making black's life easy. I'm going to take with the pawn for those reasons. Black goes knight b4. Once again, black, look at how desperate black is to exchange pieces. In this case, I can actually exchange it because I would be doing it in my terms. Like, I would be gaining more tempos. But I could also go knight e3, which is interesting. What should I do? I'm going to go for... Okay, bishop d2 is also interesting. Too many choices here. I'm going to take and go bishop d2. So I'm exchanging in my terms, as I said. And I have less than 3 minutes, so I should stop talking. I'm going to go bishop d3. a3, b4 is also very serious. Maybe bishop e2 is better, because bishop d3 potentially puts itself on the way of knight b4 ideas. But okay, I think I can tolerate that. Knight c6, I go bishop c3. Yeah, bishop c3. Defending d4. Castle short side would have allowed knight takes d4. Knight b4, I think I have... I don't know, queen a4, bishop d7. That doesn't work. I think I simply go bishop e2 and then a3, b4. It's not a big deal. If I castle short side, maybe h5 is a problem. Okay, I think I might start with a3 then. b4 is a very key square here. And if I can get b4, that would be amazing. I think I will... no, b4, knight takes c5. So first rook c1. First rook c1. At some point a5 I think is a useful move, but my opponent is just kind of going for it. I mean, playing very quickly, which is a very decent strategy against me, I hate to say. But okay, let's go for it. I think my opponent has been neglecting the king side for a while. This h5 move is always in the air, but I don't think it's working that efficiently anymore. Black was knight a7. Okay, okay. They want knight b5 or bishop b5? Yeah, maybe black is absolutely fine. Maybe we didn't get our usual slight plus. Knight b5, I go bishop b2. If bishop b5, I go bishop b1. David, you can't cause a short side anymore. Well, the center is kind of closed, so as long as I'm not blundering some bishop h4 stuff, then I'm good. I'm gonna go king f2. Once again, I think the rook on h1 is actually useful for the sake of answering h5 with h3. Knight b5, I'm gonna answer with bishop b2. Once again, we're following that idea of keeping pieces on the board. And all of a sudden, black has made it so the bishop on c4 is pinned. So I'm not entirely sure if this is the best way. But as I said, we have to... I think our biggest enemy now is not our position. It's more like the time. So what's our next move here? Wow. Okay, knight g5 is a move. h4. I like the idea of expanding. Expansion. h5. Ugh. I'm gonna go g5. Oh, that one I love. This is amazing, no? This is a tactical mistake. Okay, this is looking amazing for me now. Okay, a4. e6. It's kind of close to working, but it's... Okay, I'm gonna take this guy. I'm gonna go queen f4, trying to pick this guy up. And I'm gonna put a king on g3. Ugh. Okay, I'm gonna put this rook here then. I'm gonna put a king on g3. Not ideal, but I mean, what am I gonna do? And knight d2 is the idea here. I have to play much quicker. Much quicker. Okay. Okay. I'm happy about this, I think. Am I happy? Those are the tough questions of life. Oof, I almost blundered there. I think d6 is the way. But this is getting open for my king. I don't like it. I don't like it. I think it's still winning, but I have to be very careful converting this. Bishop d8, queen c4 is winning. Bishop f8. Okay, this is falling into this. Oh, this is super weird. F6. Oh, if I took too long making that move. That was stupid by me. But luckily as well, like they're forced to exchange the queens. And the dark squares are very weak at the very end of everything. So yeah, this is looking good. I think we survived the worst, potentially. Takes. Go for it, go for it. Where's the money? Okay, check. Let's exchange pieces. Takes is good news. Let's hit that guy. Check, not check. Ugh, that was stupid by me. Hey, there we go. Thank you for the game, Wangino. A little bit closer than I wanted. I shouldn't have... Okay, let's go through it in the postmortem. Yeah. h5 from black seems here wrong. We'll take a look at that. But yeah, black goes for queen b6 in an early version. Usually what black should play is knight g7, wait until white goes knight e3, and only then go d4. Here g4, as we said, comes with a tempo, so things are looking good for white. But very instructive moment here. So do you guys remember how I was boasting arrogantly that c takes d4 is the superior way and I was the best? Well, I was completely wrong. Knight c takes d4 was the best, which I can't comprehend, at least not yet. So why? Okay, I see why. Actually, I don't see why. So in my mind, c takes d4 keeps things, these two knights at least, it keeps them superfluous. Superfluous is when those two knights are kind of fighting for the same square. But this allows h5, so I think it runs into another problem. That's the simple explanation. And if black goes for something like what happened in the game, then we're happy. Look at this. It actually does pay off. So c takes d4 is not wrong strategically, it's wrong tactically because there's h5. Although a5 and bishop d7 also work, so, and those are more strategical moves. Now let's take a look at this very quickly. Sorry, knight c takes d4. It's also important which knight to take with, because apparently g5 is allowed here, so there's not an f3. Continuing defending the e5 square is a key component of this variation. And according to the engine, once again, I mean, very accurate. Queen takes d4. I mean, knight takes d4. What is wrong with this? Knight c6, bishop e3, and then, I don't know, queen takes b2. Isn't this enough? There's knight b5, defending c3 and simultaneously creating a threat on our own. I mean, this is a typical kind of pattern. We're also sometimes threatening to trap the queen, but this is unclear. And black is fine if they defend. So this is very unclear. Queen takes d4, knight c6. Queen takes d4 seems to be better. If they accept the endgame, then it seems like we're keeping things under control. Because after h5, we have g5. And white has, like, the main source of advantage for white, if you can say that. Like, the main reason why white is better is space. But yeah, once again, it doesn't seem like much, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the engine is actually right here. I mean, I don't doubt it, but I don't know. c takes d4 seems more human. We ended up going for this. It was better for black to go a5 or h5 or bishop d7. After this, we went for the right approach. b4 here would have been very strong. Yeah, I forgot about that. Whenever you have the chance of playing b4, you should generally go for it. And I played bishop c3, and then things went our way over here. Except for b4. Queen d2 would have been a healthier way of preventing knight a5 stuff. I was worried about a5 though, but the engine doesn't seem to care. They go g5, and even if you fall victim to all of this queenside operation weird stuff. Wait a second, what am I saying? This is not even a threat. The rook is on c8, not on a8. Yeah, it seems like white is happy here. But what is the threat? h4, h5, g6? Fair enough. Yeah, maybe that was the best. But after f5, it seems like h5 was strong. But they went at a7. Yeah, it's a tough game to unpack. But bishop c4, yeah, that definitely felt wrong. Like, this bishop on c4 felt stuck all of a sudden. A source of tactics rather than a strength. So h5 here would have been strong too. But once we get king f2, now h5 is not as strong. I thought because of h3, and yeah, h3 is partly the reason, yeah. h3. And now we have connected our rooks, so all of these resulting exchanges are absolutely fine for white. So instead of that, knight b5 happened, bishop b2, good move, and then king d7, we expanded, and this is just winning the exchange, and after that it was just conversion. Although we didn't convert this in the best way possible. a4, knight a7, knight d2 was the best, and after king b8, takes, rook hd1 followed by d5, and even if queen d5, that's simply, well, I was gonna say simply prolonging the issue. Yeah, queen f3 is one of the ways, yeah. But yeah, here we panicked a little bit. I mean, I wanted to put my king in somewhere safer, but I think it's actually more exposed on g3 than anything, so not sure what I was trying to do here. For a second here, white has to actually play it very accurately, and I was lucky that the best move happens to be a very logical one, followed by d5, once again very logical. e6 is very dangerous because all of a sudden bishop d6 becomes a threat. Not now, but I don't know, queen d8, and yeah, you have to start defending. So I took and went d6. Yeah, I was lucky that all of these moves, I mean, they are only moves, but they're very logical. And once again, queen f6. Although I do feel good about finding all of these accurate moves, but to be completely honest, yeah, they're very logical. And after this, it's completely winning. Okay, well, that was an eventful win. And now we're on 20th place. Yes. Thank you, thank you. This is Berserk yet again. Let's play d6. This could be the first Philidor of the evening. Let's go knight f6. Let's make sure everything is not collapsing. And this is how powerful the Philidor... Ah, okay. I was going to make a joke about my opponent disconnecting. Never mind. So we're going to go e5. Potentially our opponent is going to go into the endgame. Yep. I had a feeling. So compared to the endgame we just played 2 games ago, this one is actually a little bit more... Well, a little bit I say, but it's much better for white. They go for bishop c4. If I recall correctly, bishop b4 is a move here. And king e8 is another one. So I'm going to go king e8. I'm going to go king e8. I haven't checked my files for this in a long time. Knight bd7 is blundering to knight g5, as far as I remember. So I have to go bishop d6 in order to reserve rook f8. They go bishop g5. And now I wonder if I can go knight g4, followed by f6 and knight h6, knight f7. Reroute that knight, which is very often the way to go. You can also simply go knight bd7. I think this is very natural. Ouch. They go knight b5. Isn't that blundering the pawn on e4? I think this is blundering the pawn on e4, so I'm going to take it. If knight takes e6, I can take with a pawn or with a knight. And to add insult to injury, I'm also planning to play f6 and knight b6. Okay, bishop e3. Because knight takes g5 was a threat as well. Very serious. Very, very reasonable. I can play knight b6 for the sake of developing this bishop. I can play a very typical maneuver, bishop b4, c3, bishop a5. Keeping an eye on c7, but not allowing white to exchange the knight for the bishop. But I think that's too much. I mean, let's just go a6 and keep the game flowing. I am aware that the bishop pair could potentially become an issue. I'm going to play knight takes d6 for the sake of winning a tempo, because it seems like if I take my time too much, then the bishop pair, which is what I was about to say, the bishop pair does end up being a little bit worrying. So let's be quick. So knight takes d6. I think the bishop pair is not enough for the pawn. That's finishing my thought. I'm going to go knight f5. I want to chase away that bishop. If it goes to d2, then I get additional options, such as knight c5. Knight g5 arrives. I'm going to castle. I'm joking. I can't castle. Yeah, this is a little bit annoying, maybe. This is a little bit annoying, maybe. If I go h6, bishop takes f7, king e7 is winning. Because there's no way for white to save the knight and the bishop, given that the knight is defending the bishop. If the knight moves, the bishop loses, the bishop is lost, and so on. Vice versa, actually. So h6 kind of forces knight takes f7, but then rook f8. And very similarly, the knight is lost. So I'm going to go h6. I could also go king e7 following that logic. I know, because then knight takes f7, knight g5. So h6 is important. Once again, I link this to what Shankland said. Well, Shankland / Jacob Aguilar, whoever you guys want to quote, whoever you guys want to credit, I think is the right word. But when your opponent is threatening something, are they really threatening? In this case, it was actually a threat. But it was very close to not working. So that's why, in that case, asking the question was useful. And look at this. We are going to win. I love these positions. 2 pieces for the rook, and that is obviously amazing for black. And you're going to say, well, mathematically, David, you're just up 1 point. That's not such a big deal. It's more than that, my friendo. What a patronizing thing to say. But it is more than that. King g6. Bishop d7, bishop c6. I can't go h5 because of g5. But I do want to go h5. I'm gonna go bishop e6. I'm gonna get my king out of there. I'm gonna go play king e7. Now part of the idea is g5 followed by h5. Although g5 does loosen up the knight a little bit. Maybe I should take it easy. I'm gonna go a5, threatening a4, trying to provoke a4. Okay, I'm gonna go a4. Trying to open the file. If b takes a4, you might think, well, David, you're strategically better after rook takes a4, which would be true, but then rook bishop c4 would be better. When that happens, I'm gonna activate this rook. Okay, let's see. So bishop d7, bishop c6 looks very tempting. Knight e4 also looks very tempting. And the reason why this looks tempting is because it stops white from trading the rook. I think keeping the rook is beneficial for me, especially if it's on a2. And I'm also introducing some knight f2, knight 6 h3, or knight g5, knight f3. Like even rook b2, knight c5. Positionally, this is very difficult to hold. I wouldn't be surprised if white was very soon in some sort of Zugzwang. So I am going to go h5. Why this? Because I saw already in some lines that bishop takes h3 would be very useful to have. At the end of the day, I would be including one attacker into the game. And actually, this is very useful. Look at this, knight d2. This has a double attack. One of them, or a double threat, I should say. One of them is taking the rook simply, but the other one is knight f3 check, which would be deadly. And when I say deadly, I mean completely game over. For example, rook d1, knight f3. If king h1, there's mate. If king f1 is mate, then actually we will get that line. Now we get to see why h5 was a good move a couple of moves ago. The instinct of including the bishop ended up being correct. Thank you very much. Let's take a look at that. So we went for the endgame. Let's just check here momentarily. So bishop e6 is another way of playing, and you may think, David, this is ugly. And it is ugly, but it's completely fine. Those double isolated pawns are actually fine. But yeah, I forgot what I play here, so I'm gonna do what I usually do, which is checking where the games of Leon Levaich are. So does he play bishop before? No, he doesn't. Okay, then I'm fine. I think he does play king e8. Do we see any Leon Levaich? He's a strong grandmaster from Croatia. Does anyone see? Nah, I don't think. I think that's what he plays. And we play bishop d6. After bishop g5, we play knight b7. This is all the main line, but then knight b5 is already wrong. Castle's queenside was the right way, after which I would have played a6 for the sake of stopping knight b5 stuff. Now that it does become a threat, taking on e4 becomes 1,000 times more dangerous. So a6, after which white plays a4. h6 is the main line. If bishop e3, you have knight g4 ideas. So bishop h4 is better. And then knight h5 with the idea of g5, bishop g3, and knight f4. Actually, g5, bishop g3, and simply keeping the tension and going king f8, king g7 according to the engine. So there you have it. It's a very passive position for black, but black is holding as long as they play. Oh, there we go. Leon Levaich, the only game in the database. So yeah, this is what he plays. Let's just take a look at that game. He played king e8. Yeah, he did play king e8. So let's close this. And I think at some point it just became... I think it's just a pawn, right? Did we go extremely wrong at some point? I think h6 was important here. And after rook f8, it's simply winning material. And as I said, despite it seeming as if it was just a 1-point deficit mathematically, it's more than that. It's almost -3. Completely lost. So now we're in 11th place. We're almost making it to the very top. Hello, Harlem. Let's see. How much time do we have left? 1 hour. I think it's time for us to stop berserking soon. And we're gonna get stronger opposition soon, given that there's 2,000 rated players over here. There was someone rated 2,200 over here, which I thought was a title player. Yeah, we're still getting some lower 2,000 rated players. So we're gonna berserk again. We're gonna get another French La Bourdannais. So we're gonna go e5, c5, knight f3. We know the drill. We're gonna go c3, delaying the movement of this pawn on d2. And black goes f5. Wow. I think I've had this only once before. So going for f5, what is that going? What's happening? What does that do? f5 right away. I think I'm going to continue with my plan. Knight a3, knight c2, d4. Obviously, this is closing the position further. But sometimes black wants to reserve the movement of the f-pawn for the sake of getting f6. So that may be important. So c takes e4, I'm going to take back with the pawn again. Take a bishop e7. Okay, very serious. Very reasonable. Very reasonable. So I want to go h4, h5, but unfortunately h4 takes. And I'm not in time for queen h5 check, because it's check against my own king. So yeah, that's unfortunate. I'm going to go bishop e3. Actually, I'm already regretting it a little bit. Yeah, after takes, all of a sudden, sometimes I want this square for the knight. My opponent calls a short side though. What is going on here? Can I go h4, takes. King d2, threatening queen h5. Ugh, looks very artificial. I'm gonna go a3. I'm gonna go a3. I'm gonna go b4. Usually if white gets a3, b4, then we can put our bishop on d3 without being bothered about knight b4 stuff. Black goes a6, b5, and now I'm gonna go h4. It's very hard to believe that opening the h-file, sacrificing a pawn is not right. Like, I'm gonna put a king on d2 and closing things off in the queen side. Although it's not closed, because black can still sacrifice the b5 pawn. But doing that to the queen side seems to help me. I'm gonna go king d2. After a5, by the way, I can keep things as they are. I don't have to take anything. So that's why I say closed. Now here there are 1,000 ways, 1,000 moves that catch my eye. Queen h5, g4. I think g4 allows g6. So I'm gonna go queen h5, provoke h6. I have queen g6, queen e8, rook takes h6, but then queen g6, bishop e8, queen takes e6 is working. Oh, maybe it is working. I'm gonna go g4 though. I think it feels like the move that allows my pieces to work together. Now against queen e8, obviously we're not gonna trade pieces. We're sacrificed the pawn. We have open lines against the enemy king. The last thing you want to do in these situations is exchange queens. It's contradictory. So I'm gonna play queen h3. Simply gonna bring everyone into the game. I mean, even if, for example, rook g1, then g5, that's serious. But g takes f5 would be my main idea. Yeah, what am I saying? g5 is definitely, I mean, an idea, but the main priority should be g takes f5, opening things up. Which, by the way, I mean, you know, my position, I think, the power of open lines is so big that even g takes f5 here allowing black to exchange queens would fall into a devastating initiative, I would say. But it's a little bit more unclear after king h7, so obviously queen h3 keeping the queens makes all of those threats even bigger. Because, I don't know, let's say rook g1, and then, like, let's say rook c8, rook g1, king h7, we take, and already rook takes g7 is winning. Okay, f takes g4, let's go queen takes g4. Introducing rook takes h6. Introducing bishop g6, sorry. Good lord. Or also simply bringing the rook into the game. And if black wants to kind of defend g7, anticipating rook g1, oh! Then this is bad news. Now, once again, bishop g6 is winning the queen. Do we have anything better? I think we can take here as well. We have so many good moves. Let's go for this. I think this is better than winning the queen. Bishop h7, bishop g6, rook h8, queen h5, queen h7. That's what we're threatening, and my opponent allows it. This is a typical pattern. Check, check. It's one of the most satisfying checkmates, in my humble opinion. My opponent now gets to see. My opponent resigns. No, they didn't allow it. Let's force it. Thank you for the game. King g8, we go. Okay, h8. We bring the queen. And because black is all blocked up here. Well, I should say only with the rook. It wouldn't matter. With the queen on f7. Okay, that was a nice quick win. I actually forgot to analyze it, but I think it was pretty straightforward. So let's keep moving. We also want to get to the very top, so we can make an exception. How much time do we have left? 53 minutes. Okay. The number 1 has 40 points. So we have to play against the number 1. We have to berserk against them. To kind of squeeze everything out of... well, everything out of our chances. We can actually see their game here. I know, that's not enough. That's Chejov. Okay, Tomsio, 2200. We're gonna berserk. With all due respect. Let's see. We have to play quickly. I'm gonna focus here. Okay, knight f6. Knight b7. This transposes into the Philidor. I go bishop e7. Here the main line is castle Schurza. Some people play a4. Kind of luring black to play a5. But bishop g5 is a very weird move. What if I simply go h6 here? Can also castle. I think I'm going to castle. There you go, queen d2. Okay, what if I go h6? I don't believe in your trickery, my friendo. But they clearly want to castle queen set. Okay, maybe let's not clear. I went from very brave and playing h6 and very daring to a scaredy cat, as they say. Okay, they take with d takes e5. Should I take with the knight or with the pawn? I think taking with the knight is more reasonable. It gains the tempo. If they take, I'm only happy. Because I can't be... there's no way I'm worse in this endgame. Now, do I want to trade queens? Is another question. Funnily enough... is it funny? Interestingly enough, I may not want to. I think I'm gonna go queen c7. It's a tough one. Okay, I'm gonna take... I think it's very solid. Because I also get b5. It's very quick. It's very simple. It's very concrete. Should I start with h6 or with b5? I'm gonna start with b5. If I go h6, maybe they can take and play a4. I'm gonna start with b5. Only then I'm gonna go h6. They go bishop e3, knight g4 is a big problem. So bishop h4 I'm expecting. And then I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I could go b4, c5. That's a typical Philidorian maneuver. Do I want my bishop here or over here? b4, knight d2. Tough questions, good lord. I can also play rook e8, which threatens b4, knight takes e4. But that, not even that is a threat, so yeah. I'm simply gonna go bishop e6. It feels very natural. I'm gonna go bishop e6, and now, I mean, actually, I'm not sure why, but I was thinking if I go b4, c5, the bishop would be better on b7, but that's not necessarily true. I can still go b4, c5 here. That would be still threatening c4 stuff. Here I'm gonna go a5, a4. Why? Because if I go b4 right away, there's not a4. So if I put my pawn on a4, I'm preventing that. Okay, wow. I am finally gonna go rook fe8 because I think it's useful to be able to move this knight. Also, some tactics with knight takes e4 become a thing. Okay, that is interesting. Not sure if it's good, but it's interesting. That dark square bishop, like the bishop pair in this case, and the dark squares, oof, they're very weak. I think this only helps me. And white can't force an open file here. As soon as they go g5, I can go h5. Although they do get g6, but then f6. Yeah. Maybe I should have done something to prevent that. Wait a second, can I go b4? Aiming for the absolute best? I'm not sure. I'm gonna go f6. And let's remember, I forgot for a second I berserked, so I have to be quick. a3, c5, bishop c5. Ah, they want knight g3. That's a little worrying. Okay, let's go a3. Oh, what am I doing? Take the pawn, no. Okay, that was stupid by me. That was very stupid. What do we do now? Okay, I'm gonna sacrifice this pawn. Oh, that was super stupid as well. I'm panicking out of nowhere. Okay, maybe not necessarily super stupid, but definitely stupid. Wow. Okay. I think takes, and then my idea was this, but I missed knight c3. But now I get c4, and I think I have enough stuff. Here, I also have this. Which rook? That's always the big question in chess. Okay, look here. I mean, I'm regretting every single move I make. Okay, that one I'm happy with. I think. Because I get the B file, potentially. If I get a structure like C3, then it's just totally overwhelming. And I mean, let's not forget, I mean, white sure is winning a pawn, but then after that, what is... Like, it takes them a while to actually move it back and then push the H pawn, so... Maybe what my opponent wants something here like C3, but bishop C5, bishop E3 looks very good. It's very interesting. I think I want this rook on D8 all of a sudden, this one on B8. If I had those rooks on those squares already, then the threat of bishop E3 becomes way too strong. Not to mention threats of invading with rook B2. Well, how do we get that? Okay, let's start with rook D8. Cutting the king this way I think is important. So for example, if I had the chance of playing bishop E3 right now, I would do it. I think they have to play rook E2. But then rook D3. It's looking good, it's looking good. But let's not forget about time. Rook E2, rook... Oh, wow. Okay, this is definitely not working. Yeah. This is desperate. I can also go bishop h6, by the way. But rook a b8, rook b2 is 2. Is winning 2. Well, that was an interesting game. I think I was definitely in trouble. I was definitely in trouble after... Especially after c5. I think that was an important moment. I think my opponent should have probably spent a little bit more time calculating bishop takes b5. I think they believed me way too quick. Way too quickly. Thanks for the imp, Tomsio. Let's analyze that. So we got into this. Yeah, this is the Vienna game, but it transposes very quickly into a Philidor. Obviously, white can play some sort of anti-Philidor struct, like setup with g3 or d3 or bishop c4 and then d3 and so on. But d4 is the principal way of playing, occupying the center, obviously. And then here, bishop g5 is very weird. I think I've had it a couple of times only. And I was about to play h6. h6 makes sense to do before castling short side, because after you castle short side, already h4 becomes an idea. And while the engine laughs into white's face, humanly this is scary. So h6 right away maybe was the way. Then if bishop h4, you're kind of asking, well, why did you really want to take your bishop to h4? This is potentially weakening or potentially not benefiting you in future lines, especially in the main line. And if they go bishop e3, then you just gave black h6. Like, every single time white takes out the bishop over here, h6, and then they go back, it's equivalent to white having played something bishop e3, something like bishop e3 right away. But obviously black would be happy to have the pawn on h6. So yeah, that's a life hack, an opening life hack. You guys should remember. And yeah, after queen e2 we were pretty happy. So castle short side was fine. They should have castle short side too. After which c6 is still very logical. a4, a5 I'm assuming, h3, h6. Now white can play bishop e3, now that knight g4 is not possible. We could have played h6 actually for those reasons before, and then knight g4 is a move, bishop d2 and then a5. Black is fine. It's just very similar to the main line of the Philidor. But white did something weird. White is kind of wasting tempo with the bishop. That's the general consensus, I think. But yeah, and here d65 was stronger. Because we have b5, queen c7, and for some reason keeping the position as it is stronger. Knight d65 is clearly, yeah. I just chose the one that I was sure it wasn't going to be any problem for black. But yeah, I'm quite sure if we took a look at this a little bit deeper, we would be able to understand why keeping more pieces on the board was beneficial. Maybe it's because white gets f3 more easily. Not sure. Also, after queen c7, very often this knight on d7 is more useful than the knight on f3. So it may be that. But okay, this happened. And then we exchanged, and when we went b5, apparently h6 was the right way. Although I was scared of something like this, and then a4. And then there's bishop g5, so what am I saying? White would have played something like knight d1, and then we get b5 stuff either way. Which is what black generally wants, by the way, in the Philidor. They want to expand on the queen side. Now, bishop e3 was the better one. Bishop d3 was played, h6, and yeah, black is slightly better. And all of these moves were played. Rook f8 was apparently better, but a5 is very logical. Here, rook f8 was okay, but a4 was the hyper-accurate way of playing, threatening b4, now that knight a4 is not a problem, as we talked about. I was actually wondering what to do against a3. One of my questions was whether I should go b4, which is one of the top engine moves, but actually the engine likes preparing with rook f8 first, and only then b4 in a better version. But I went rook f8, and then my opponent took on f6, pretty surprisingly. Better was a4. And getting into some sort of position where I go b3. And this is already a little bit annoying to play, admittedly. But bishop takes f6 is a little bit more, a little bit worse. And yeah, after this it was okay. Bishop takes a2 here. Yeah, what am I doing? I mean, knight g3, I would have played something like bishop e6, and sure, white is winning this guy. So white is no longer up a pawn because we also want a pawn. But more important than that, I think white's play of going h5, h6 is slower than our playing with a3. It's already arriving, actually, a3. Like takes, and you go rook takes, a3, threatening rook a1. Yeah, what am I doing? I realized as soon as I played a3, that was stupid. And when you make a mistake, mistakes don't come alone, as they say. Here I should have kept calm, played bishop c5, but I went c5. And here, clearly, white has a winning move. All of a sudden, bishop takes e5. My miscalculation was based on knight c3, but even something like bishop c6 and bishop d5 is working. Because I don't have enough power anymore to find counterplay. And it's not a surprise, like white gets to exchange one of the bishops. It goes with the principles as well. But after this, like after white allowed me to get c4, then it's back to winning. And I think after that, we didn't allow anything. So thank you for the game, Tomsio. Definitely very interesting. Let's see if we can do this without messing everything up. Okay, we're getting at 2300. I think it's about time I stop berserking. I'm joking. Let's berserk again. Just to get the 100% berserk rate. But once again, I'm gonna focus really hard here. I don't wanna ultimately completely fail this one. So what we're doing here is we're playing a reversed Philidor. I'm playing bishop e2. Seems very passive, because it is. But it has some venom. Especially if you're very familiar with these positions with the black pieces. My opponent takes on e4. Very interesting, actually. Normally black doesn't... Well, I should say white in the normal Philidor does not break the tension that soon. They go a6. Usually allowing b4 is good for white. That's why they go a5 rather than a6. I'm gonna go queen c2. This is typical of the Philidor. That's another benefit of playing the Philidor, by the way. In rapid time controls, it's more intuitive. You have a clear plan. Queen, like c3, queen c2, knight c4, rook d1. a4, b4, expansions, h3. Now here black already is facing some sort of problem with the pawn on e5. I thought actually bishop takes e4 was forced. Isn't this just winning a pawn? It looks like it. What am I missing? You can also go knight g5. You can also go a4 with the idea of b5. Actually, that one I like. Do I like that? I'm gonna keep things as they are. a4 introduces bishop a3. They go for bishop takes e4 then. It's very similar to those positions of bishop takes e4 happening in the previous move. Here I'm gonna go bishop a3. Given that there's many pieces, many heavy pieces in the same diagonal. And now that does seem very logical. But can we win stuff? I think we can. I'm gonna take and take. Takes. I think this is an extra pawn. Now this bishop on a3 is extremely bad, obviously, now that everything is blocked. Hopefully I can reroute it to c1. I think it's actually okay on c1. I don't have to move it anywhere else. But let's hope we can do that in time. That's the point. There's some lines, knight c5, bishop b3, which I've been looking at, but I think I have knight c6. There's queen takes e4, takes. I know I'm taking on d8. What am I saying? Yeah, knight c6 I think is strong. Bishop e3, knight c6. Ah, but there's queen e6. Oh, knight takes d8. Whoa, it's very tactical all of a sudden. Bishop e3, queen takes b3, queen takes e5. If I could play f3, I would obviously play it. But unfortunately, I'm not in time. Okay, black goes queen e8. I think bishop e3 was critical. Bishop b3 was very critical. So now I think I get bishop b2 with tempo and then c4. And my pieces seem to be breathing. I didn't go bishop c1. I think bishop c1 is also playable. But the bishop on b2 is already active. Now, do I go king h1 for the sake of getting f3? That seems very tempting. I can also go c4 as mentioned before. But the problem with that one... What is the problem with that one? bc... I think there's no problem actually. But I'm going to choose to play rook fe1 first. In order to get... It's an ambitious move. I think c4 is fine. The rook on rook fe1 is a useful move. Yeah, I'm going to play it. I can't resist. I'm sorry. Bishop b3, queen b3, queen e5. Bishop f3 is now keeping things under control. What am I saying? There's also c4. Isn't c4 completely winning? Because there's c5, and if bc, there's bishop takes c4, and now we get to see the power of the rook on e1. Okay, obviously I didn't calculate that, but I'm half joking here, but... Yep. Bishop d4, rook a5. Okay, maybe it's not as clear as I wanted. Maybe not as clear as I wanted. Bishop d4, rook a5, bishop takes b2, rook takes e5, bishop takes e5. Ah, that should be winning. That should be winning. Bishop d4, rook a5. Let's say queen f4, threatening bishop takes f2. But then I get bishop d4 takes and rook f5. Lots of exciting stuff. I also get e5 stuff. Okay, that I completely missed, and I'm very... And this is very interesting, actually. Wow. Okay, I have to take this. I mean, I don't have to, but... Rook e2. Okay, maybe it doesn't work. Let's call it a bluff. Okay, knight g4. I didn't expect that. I expected rook d2. I mean, I understand king g1, queen h2. But what about king f1? We have less than 2 minutes. Here I have queen f3. Oh my goodness. I do not have queen f3. My opponent got me. Very clever opponent. Credit to them. So now I have to... Now I'm losing. King g1, queen h2. They got me. What a move. Okay, I have to go for this stupid queen f3 stuff. Oh, yeah. Is there any hope here? I don't think so. What a way of ruining a position. Oh, that's a strong move. Okay. Credit to my opponent. Yeah, they played very well. I messed that up. Is it time to call it a day? Bishop takes f2, king takes... King f3. Wow. Okay, I just didn't see queen f4. King f3, obviously, yeah. It's just equal though. I'm not winning. It's a perpetual. Yeah, I was very ambitious here. That was stupid. I should have played rook. Yeah, I should have played c4 right away. What am I doing? I'm getting punished now. Bishop b3, very strong move by my opponent. d4 is the only move, but then I completely underestimated this bishop takes f2 stuff. Rook d2, does that work? Rook e2, knight takes e4, king g1. Yeah, that does not work. Yeah. Let's see the opening. That was the end. The end of a nice streak. It happens. Yeah, this was fine. A4, bishop A3. Bishop E3 is the key move here. Ah, we don't take out. Well, look at this. Knight C6 was the right way. And Queen E6 is the right way. Sacrificing this. But despite having the exchange, we still have to play against the enormous amount of compensation that black has gained. Like this bishop. And then my pieces are uncoordinated, especially this bishop on A3. What is that doing? Doing there. So I'm already fighting for my life here. It's easier equality for black, I would argue. So I think bishop E3 was the way. But still, I mean, I fell for all the stuff that my opponent played. Let's not learn from our mistakes and berserk again. Nah, I'm joking. We have to berserk if we want decent chances. My opponent goes E5, which I'm gonna very happily take, followed by knight G4, creating a mutual threat of bishop knight F2 and knight E5. My opponent goes knight H3, stopping one of them but not the other. Here I'm gonna knight C6. Because the king has moved, I can get away with more than I would normally. I can get away with more than I would normally could. And put my bishop on F5. Here H6, G5 seems interesting. For the sake of putting my bishop on G7 and being able to play knight D4. I think I'm gonna do that. These knights are superfluous, so I want to kind of defend one of them so I can move the other. But if I move this one, then yeah. I guess I have F6, but then that's not what I wanted. That is not what I wanted. Knight G6. Knight G6 is possible. Actually, knight G6 is very playable. Look at this. Bishop C6, I'm actually not going to address that whole situation over there. Simply going to take on H3. Simplifying. Okay, now I'm happy because now I get to move this guy. I'm going to move it to D4. Preventing bishop takes C6. And now the question is, can I sacrifice this pawn? I don't think so, so I'm going to simply go F6 followed by E5. And that's how powerful the Philidor is. We have ourselves a slider bird position. I don't know why my opponent went E5. I think it was panic. Maybe a mouse slip. They go knight F4. I'm going to take and go E5. I'm going to pre-move this, given that we do have to keep an eye on the time situation. I'm going to go bishop B4, pinning this knight to the rook. And, you know, my plan is going to be something like C6. Bring the other rook. And be happy forever. I'm going to play bishop A5. I do allow B4, but it's okay. I'm expecting white to go king B2 for the sake of bringing everyone else into the game. That seems logical. That previous loss is haunting me. I'm gonna go C6. That was part of the plan before, for the sake of blocking the action of that bishop on A4. So I can play rook D7 and rook H D8. This knight on D4 is very annoying. It can't easily be removed. And they go B5. So yeah, it's just kind of slow progress here. Now, do I go C5 or do I go king C7? I think I'm gonna go king C7. I'm gonna keep the pawn on c6. I think the pawn on c6 is doing a very good job at limiting the bishop and the knight. So if I go c5, I feel like bishop b3 may be giving white some squares that white does not deserve. Now by playing b5, white has weakened the diagonal again. So bishop a5 is a very serious threat now. It's not easy for white to actually continue defending the knight on c3. So that's why white goes knight a2. I'm going to bring the rook into the game. This time no longer d8 because the position has changed dramatically. But through b8. Now it looks like a5 is winning here, but there's knight a6. So my opponent is placing a trap here. I'm going to go bishop c5. Now this is a real pin. An absolute pin, as they call it. They go c3, and I think this is where it gets tactical. I think a5 should be working. I'm going to trust my gut here. So takes, rook c1. Ah, there's bishop f4. Okay. But there's bishop d6 potentially. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have trusted my gut. Okay, wait a second. Bishop d4 is also working. Let's see, what is working here? Takes, bishop f4. Bishop d6. Bishop c6. Okay, let's take here. Yeah, this was unnecessary. Very bad. The arrogance has got to me. I've been a victim of myself, but I think I'm in the easier side of equality now. But yeah, I had potential for much more, obviously, which is a pity. There's a very deadly variation here. Takes, king a3 was losing to rook takes a4, sacrificing the rook for the sake of d3, d2, and I think there's no way for white to stop that guy. So instead, white goes rook f7, I think, as they should, rightfully. But then potentially this is running into other issues. I'm gonna take here first things first. King takes a3. Should I go c5? Should I go d3? Questions. Can I also go king e6, but then, oh, everything is falling. Okay, I'm gonna go c5, and then king e5 potentially. Rook c6 I'm expecting. Okay, that one seems wrong. I'm gonna start pushing these guys. Now rook c6 I have king d4 potentially. And rook d6 I have king c3. And rook c6 back I have c4. And that king on c3 is not only active, but very well protected. So the idea here is d2 followed by something like rook a8, and it's completely game over. So white has either to... Yeah, it's tough. Okay, rook h5 is I think a decent try. I'm gonna go c4. The bishop d7. But I think I have d2 then. Oh, this is stupid by me. What am I doing? What is wrong with me? Okay, I'm gonna go for this, but okay, this is obviously very poor by me. I'm getting tired, I suspect. That's my excuse. But I have no excuse. Very bad, very bad. They have rook f7, yeah. Okay, let's go rook d8. I'm disgusted by my play. Disgusted. Let's put some resistance here. Bishop e5 d1. Check. Now I have good chances. Am I winning now? Yeah, what a game. Okay, let's not relax. It's not over. Here. Check seems right. And then rook a8. And it should be game over. This, yeah. So king a3, c2. And check king d3. Takes is winning. Takes is winning. And I am a lucky guy. Very poor play by me. I'm gonna stop soon because this is, I mean, we have 20 minutes left, so. But yeah, this is getting on the dangerous territory that I tend to avoid in the channel, which is definitely my play is becoming poor. But these guys are unstoppable now. There we go. Thank you for the game. Fortunately, I don't have enough energy to do postmortems anymore. Unless I really want to check if I missed anything. But we're still in the game. I mean, we still have chances to get to the first. Okay, is that true though? 50. Who did we play against that we lost? Was it Ardonian? No. It was against Ank Q. Yeah. We have to beat Marasanov. Former world chess champ. I'm joking now. I mean, it's funny how these games these mini tournaments can become so serious all of a sudden. Okay, let's play d6. Seems to be working so far. Knight of 6. e5. I sense an endgame in this one. I hope to be wrong. This is the part of the live stream where my opponent listened to me and okay, there we go. So they go for this, which I'm reasonably happy about, because now I get to keep queens on the board, which means that we have greater chances of attacking our opponent. At least that's the general logic here. And we're going to get bishop g5 again, wow. So knight of 3 is a direct transposition to our previous game. And now we know. Now we know that h6 is the way. So we're going to go h6 first. Once again, castle short set was absolutely fine, but we're going to try h6 this time. We go for bishop e3, now we're going to castle. And this just leads to the same positions of the Philidor, except that white went bishop g5, bishop e3, rather than bishop e3 directly, which would have kept my pawn on h7. So in short words, having the pawn on h6 is a very good version. Normally black actually goes out of their way to play h6, so having played that with a tempo is beneficial, that's the point. So queen e2, I think h3 in order to prevent knight g4 was probably the way. Because now I don't know, knight g4, even knight 64, knight 64, d5 is an idea. Should I go for that? I'm gonna go for rook e8, queen c7. That's another way, another typical way of playing. It's so important to mention that without h6, you wouldn't be able to play rook e8 that easily. Because there would be tricks with bishop takes f7 or knight g5 stuff. I'm gonna go queen c7, typical, now that there's a potential x-ray along the d file. And the plan is simple, knight f8, bishop e6, trade the light square bishops, and be happy, potentially. Bishop f8, knight f8 or bishop f8? That's an excellent question, my friendos. Yeah, I'm losing my mind here, guys. I don't usually stream this long. It's all for the sake of the daily rapid arena. This is what the daily rapid arena does to someone. I'm gonna knight f8. The threat is bishop e6. David, how is that a threat? Well, okay, it's a strategical threat. It's just exchanging a pair of minor pieces. Essentially, I'm going to knight g6, right? It's another idea. And white goes d5. Another idea was to take on d4 and put pressure on e4. Now that the rook is on e8. You know what I just realized? I think bishop f8 made more sense in order to actually threaten those things. Like takes and then maybe d5 because the queen is on e2. So that was stupid by me. I think that was stupid. But regardless, I think this is very logical as well, not a fate. Just bishop f8 probably was better. Okay. And actually, this is the reason why you want your knight on d7. So we're gonna actually, no biggie. It's fine. We're gonna accept our mistake. We're gonna put the knight back. The knight on d7 is also, and I just remember now that my opponent reminded me essentially, that the knight on d7 is useful because after d5, knight b6 is a necessary move in order to put pressure on the d5 pawn. You see, if white was forced to take with the pawn, that would be excellent news for black. Because after takes, this only helps black to get some expansion in the king side. But obviously white is not going to take with the pawn, white is going to take with a piece, meaning knights or bishops, and then black won't be able to get that. So by playing knight b6, this is more likely, like takes. Like white can still take with a piece, but then queen takes c2, for example, or bishop e6, and things like that. Wow, good lord, I didn't expect that. This is not working probably, because I don't see enough pieces getting involved into the attack. Obviously bishop f8 is blundering to queen takes f6. But I think I have something of this sort, right? Knight h7 is also very serious. I think I like knight h7 more. Which one do I like more? I'm gonna go knight h7, I think. I just don't see how white brings more pieces into the attack. I think that's the main reason. Ooh, what am I doing? What a poor game. Okay, I mean, it's still fine, but then I've completely forgot about this. What am I doing? So the point is that queen g6 is now a threat. I completely blundered that. Okay, I'm gonna go bishop f8, bishop g7. Now this queen is defending f7, which makes it so I'm not losing immediately. Goodness gracious. But I have some traps. For example, queen g6, bishop g7. If takes, maybe d5. No. Against takes, I have to take. Do I take with the queen though? I think taking with the queen is potentially better. For the sake of getting bishop e6 in. Rook takes d6 is played. Okay. But now bishop e6. I know, but then rook takes e6. Bishop takes e6, there's queen. I know there is not. Not a fate. Then I'm taking on d6. Rook d7. Is an insane move. Maybe it doesn't work. Oof. I think rook d7 was working. I just said it didn't. Maybe didn't work in case my opponent was listening to me. Ah, but this is also working. Good lord. Because there's c takes b at the end. I'm in trouble either way. Rook d7 was completely lost, I think. What? Queen f7 and then c takes. What is happening? Can't predict anything. Now I'm alive. This is definitely not the way. I don't buy this. Now I am winning. I mean, that sacrifice was out of nowhere, but I completely blundered d takes c6 and I was completely lost. No, the battery died. Yeah, I forgot about that. I'm gonna try to change it without wasting too much time. Give me a second. I'm expecting something like rook d3, after which, I don't know, knight g6. Okay, rook h6, I can't predict a single move. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Rook h6, good lord. Queen f4. bc. I'm gonna go bc. b3, I think I can go queen f4 actually. Knight g5, we go queen f4. Yeah, with the knight on f8, as they say, there's no mate. But we'll see. We'll see if we're in time. I mean, what a crazy position. We're up 2 minor pieces, but what has thousands of pawns? They got rook d1, okay. Okay, there's knight b2, very materialistic, but I think queen f4 is the safe one. I'm gonna simply go queen f4. But then there's always rook c6. But then there's maybe... I'm gonna go queen f4. Exchanging queen seems to be working here. Because after knight b2 stuff, like sure, my knight does seem very... Like after queen takes f4, e takes f4, rook takes c6, knight takes b2, say rook b1. I think just because this bishop is actually attacking the pawn, the knight on c3, that knight is on b2 tactically protected. So maybe, I don't know, I can play bishop d7 here. And if rook c7, rook a c8, for example. Yeah, that was a very close game. I think it's over now. Obviously, we should not relax, but especially after what we survived, there's no chance. It's too much. And we're getting the material back. Like a4 is loose, e4 is loose, c2 is loose. Let's exchange pieces here. When knight takes a4. Rook takes e4 is a threat now. Also threatening to go rook e c8. To pick up the c2 pawn. Okay, this is very tempting actually. Which one do I grab? I'm gonna go rook e c8 for the sake of getting bishop c2 and start pushing the pawn right away. Okay, I have to still be careful. Amazing that my opponent continues to find rook b7 stuff. Okay, I'm gonna go rook a b8 first. I had 96. What am I saying? I could have taken. The rook on a8 is ideal. That's why I'm kind of complaining here. It's ideally placed behind the pawn. Rook d7 is obviously landing the rook. So now I am intending to simply push that guy down the board. I can also simply take this. There are many ways. Okay, this time I'm gonna go a3 now that I realize that I do have 96 as a defensive resource. And there's nothing that stops a2. Here I can take on e4 even. Hitting this guy. Just trying to maximize everything. After this, it's definitely game over. I'll take this guy. I'm gonna go bishop e5. There's no checks. a2, a1. Should be game over. 6 minutes left. Yeah, we just had to play more games, first of all. But second of all, we played very poorly that one game. That one game that we got wrong. So let's see if we can squeeze one more game out. That was a key game against Q. I blundered bishop takes f2 and I failed to compose myself. And that's how life is. Yeah, it's very unlikely. My opponent, worst case scenario, my opponent can just burn the clock and I will never get the points of whichever game we're playing lost. But if we get a win with the Berserk, that's 5 points, which would take us to 4th place. Nothing better. There we go. We're playing against our nemesis, Q. maybe we won't get the first place, but we will get revenge, which is good enough for me. So we're gonna repeat the line. They go for d6, very interesting. I'm gonna go h3. Now they don't want to repeat. They're aware of the danger of such positions. And I'm not a big fan of what my opponent went for here. Normally you don't go bishop e6 in these structures, you keep your bishop on c8. Flexible for a while. So yeah, I'm gonna go g4, because knight h5, knight f4 ideas become pretty strong at some point. Go knight d4, very logical. Here I want to take and go knight d5. But what if we simply go... Okay, I'm gonna go for that. That's what my instinct tells me. Go knight d5. Take with the bishop. Granting me with the bishop here. Which pawn should I take with? Not the question. I'm gonna take with the c pawn. Yeah, that's what I thought my opponent would claim. I'm gonna go h4, h5 though. Now, because the center is closed, I'm not gonna worry about castling. I just want to open things up, open the king side, potentially go, I don't know, move my bishop out of c1, castle queen side if I get the time. But it does seem very optimistic of me. Especially because I don't have a good score for the bishop. Bishop f4 potentially gives itself. Okay, knight b6 I'm not convinced. Bishop f4, g5, is that a problem? I don't know. I'm gonna go bishop. Okay, I'm gonna go bishop f4 because I see that if g5 I have h6. That's purely the reason why. If it wasn't because of that, I would most likely not go for this. Okay, a5. Okay, now I'm that I'm getting queen d2 and bishop h6, I'm reasonably happy. I don't think a5, a4, a3 is something to worry about. I can give black those tempos in exchange of what I think is a quicker attack in the king side. Queen f6 falls victim of a... Actually, no. It's not a queen trap. It looks like a queen trap. Queen, bishop g5, queen e5, f4, queen e8. But obviously it looks very sad. Okay, now this allows bishop h6. It's looking like a dragon, actually. Like a Sicilian dragon. I'm gonna go bishop h6. With the idea of takes on h6. Sorry, on g6, then on takes on g7, queen h6, queen h7, and... hope for the best. Queen f6, bishop g5, queen e5, f4. Queen e8. f5. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty promising. Yeah. Okay, that one. Is my opponent gonna go g5? I think that's the idea. Do I have f4? Wow, this is maybe very strong. My queen is trapped. My queen is trapped. That's not amazing. Amazing news. Okay, f4. If this, I take, and my queen is free. Can always castle short side, I suppose. Can also go e5. Very tempting. But knight takes d5 looks very unclear. So let's first take, I suppose. But castle short side, queen e7, takes. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna take. If I could castle here, I would potentially. Oh, queen e6 though. And yeah, I'm actually planning to go king d2 rather than castle queenside. I think the king on c1 is somehow more exposed. And I'm seeing some lines where the queens get traded. But yeah, it would be... Oh my goodness. Yeah, this guy is my kryptonite. Oh, they didn't see it. Rook f6 is trapping the queen. Whew. I mean, we're still kind of worse. How do I do it? So, I mean... The time is over, by the way. If I change the scenes here. We're not gonna get time to squeeze that win. But now it's all about merit. Okay, queen e7 looks strong. Pinning the knight. Also, introducing queen takes g5. Again. There's rook f7 as well. Queen e7, rook f7, rook takes f8, queen e7. I like the idea of taking on g5. But the problem here is that it's a bad bishop against good knight. If I could teleport that bishop somewhere active, obviously that would be amazing, but yeah. But this maneuver I'm not convinced about. I'm gonna go queen h6. Now I get g5, g6 potentially. Not sure why my opponent is playing quickly all of a sudden. The time to play quickly is over. The tournament is over. c4. Okay. Let's try to open things up. Rook f7 is potentially a very strong move. Still a question of who's quicker. Rook hg. Rook f6. Rook f7. Nah, that looks wrong. Bishop g4, bishop e6. That's blundering knight takes c4. What am I saying? Okay, I'm gonna bring pieces into the game. But if c4, I go gh. If c3, I take. And if takes with the queen, I go king d1. I think I'm winning. But I have to be very careful. I know I'm not winning. Queen a1. What am I smoking? Okay, I think I'll have to make a king move then. Which is very nerve-wracking, but potentially fine. I may have king b1. Hoping for the best. Okay, this is definitely wrong. What a knight that is. How is that knight so defensive? For goodness sake. Queen f6, king h7. I have a draw at my disposal, obviously. But whether I want it is the question. I don't think I have a choice. Yeah, it's unfortunate. You can have this pawn. Let's disappear this pawn. Yeah. Well, my nemesis... Nah, thank you for the game, obviously. I'm joking. My opponent chose a sideline to get out of theory, which is d6. And after d6, normally the way you play here as the white pieces is to go for c4 and this closed position. So my opponent went g6 and g4 was wrong by me. I should have played bishop e3, but I was worried about knight h5. Well, the engine laughs in my face. What if knight f4? Yeah, this looks good for white. If castles, simply go bishop g5. Yeah, okay. This is weird stuff. g4 now, and a better version. Interesting. Yeah, I shouldn't have feared knight h5. I overreacted. But I still think it was interesting. I just approached this position a little bit too hastily. I mean, here I could have played f4, which grants me an advantage according to the engine g5, but I don't know, it's not that easy. I think f4 is a little bit more friendly with my light scored bishop. So, but yeah, after my queen is kind of trapped here, it's pretty insane. Here I should have taken it easy once again and played king f1 or g5, which seems, what is g5 even threatening? Ah, bishop g4. Okay, yeah, somehow making this bishop strong. But instead I went all in. And then rook f6 is trapping the queen. What are we doing? And now I'm winning somehow. But I found the wrong plan. Rook f5 followed by rook hf1 was the right plan. Yeah, this is kind of a very impulsive game by me. So I'm just hoping that it works. I'm attacking, hoping that it works, and then ultimately it doesn't. And yeah, that's it. That's life. So I deserved it. I deserved it. We got 5th. Thanks everyone for the games. Hopefully that was instructive to some extent for the stream. I know I usually don't stream 2 hours and a half, but I wanted to give this arena tournament a shot. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hopefully that was instructive to some extent. I'm gonna have a hard time labeling all of those games, but it's all for your benefit. So that's why I'm here actually. Thanks everyone. You guys have a good start of your weekend, and I will see you around probably this Wednesday. Thank you. Stay safe.